Like I literally thought you had to have $100,000 in a briefcase in order to buy a property. This was just 4.5 years ago, right?
All right. Welcome back to Your Money, Your Rules, the podcast where real people share real strategies that build real legacies. Now, I'm your host, Teresa Villaruz, founder of the Thrive Movement. And around here, we believe that wealth should do more than build lifestyles. It should fund freedom, fuel purpose, and create generational change. And if you've ever wanted to raise money, lend money, or protect the money that you already have, you're going to love this episode. Today's guest is no other than Michelle Bryan, who is the kind of woman who turns purpose into action. Whether it's co-living spaces, small business buys, or impact-driven deals, Michelle helps people flow money with meaning. And that can be explained a little bit further by understanding her Mount Everest. And we'll dive into that shortly. Welcome to
Absolutely.
the show, Michelle. I'm so happy to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much, Teresa. I'm so happy and been privileged to be able to talk to your audience. So, absolutely, our Mount Everest. So it goes in line of everything you mentioned. So, we are looking to impact 10,000 lives within the next 5 years in providing impact-driven things. Now, a lot of people, just as you did, were like, "Whoa, 10,000." And when I say that, it is because we are true capital raisers and we love when we raise capital to tell the story. So, one of the biggest things is imagine if I tell you, hey, so I need, $100,000 at 12%, 12 months, and this is what your dividends are. Or if I say, Teresa, I need or we're looking for an opportunity at the $100,000 and this is going to impact in co-living and this is going to be able to impact these many lives. How would you, it's the same money but it's the way that we position it. And so everyone that will be involved in the transaction and in the actual movement is part of that 10,000. So a lot of people don't realize when we acquire a property and when there's some type of project going on, it takes an army from the underwriters to the actual money that we're looking to raise to the actual fulfillment and operations that run the actual project. So that is why we are looking to do 10,000, impact 10,000 lives. And that can be within co-living, that can be in buying businesses, that can be with midterm rentals, anything within those guidelines. So,
Oh, nice. Awesome. Well, 10,000 lives. That's a massive goal. And
yeah.
you said earlier that it does take an army, but usually when people have these massive goals, things that could be super scary to even tackle, right? There has to be a why behind it. Like why what's your story? Like why is this your Mount Everest?
Yeah, so I've been an entrepreneur for over 15 years. And so when I started into the business of entrepreneurship and got into the latter part, I was a general contractor before becoming an investor. And I lived out in Miami, Florida, was very successful, and then COVID hit. And I was still successful. We're an essential company, but it just what was success then still felt empty. And so when I really started to audit my life, and you're going to hear this a lot. But when I started to audit my life, I realized at that point in the season, I'm like, I have to do more. And at that time, it was coming back to San Antonio, Texas, and starting to become the investor. And the intention of opening the general contracting was to become an investor. But at that time, I didn't know. Like, I literally thought you had to have $100,000 in a briefcase in order to buy a property. This was just 4.5 years ago, right? So it was one of those things that when my first business partner, I told my mom, I said, look, if we're going to make money and we're going to actually make it, we have to make it matter and it has to be by purpose-driven things. And she's like, I raised you right. I was like, that's a non-negotiable for us. And so that's how we went into military housing and we went into midterm rentals. And it wasn't called midterm rentals back in the day. These were just like crash pads and pit pads. And now we have a lot of people really pushing this. And in the career and what we've done in 4 years, Teresa, it's 231 lives we've been able to impact, but that's on a one-on-one basis. You have one home, one family. And so when Ben and I really looked, which is now my fiance and business partner, in our other ventures, we really looked and peeled it back and said, like, we have to do bigger things. And we audited last year, and I said, you know what? How can we do that? And so there's a whole, I'm a numbers girl. So the 10,000 is all calculated out and how the metrics works. And all to the point of like how many we would be able to. So our biggest why is my biggest thing is that tomorrow something shall happen to me. I want to be known for something, and I want to know that we've been able to serve, and that people really like just know us for that. And we don't have children yet, but we definitely just we want to leave that legacy. And most of our companies are called legacy at some capacity.
Oh,
So.
I love that. I love that. That's one of the stories of, really doing what you can because you have a purpose that's been put in place in your heart, right?
Mhm.
And you've shared this before, and I'm not, you shared this before that you're also a believer, just like me. And I
Mhm.
think that's kind of like why we connected. It's because we know we both have this feeling that we are here on earth for a bigger purpose than just living and being successful. It's more of like, how can we pour into other people, right?
Mhm.
One thing that you mentioned actually was that, there's this mindset that you had in the beginning about, you have to have $100,000 in a suitcase in order to invest in real estate. But obviously, as a capital raiser, that's not what you're doing now. You're leveraging OPM to make an impact, right? So, and you're also known as, a capital raiser, and you're helping other people, raise money without being a salesperson essentially. But the question that I have then for you is that, that with that mindset, obviously becoming a capital raiser, you had to switch your mindset a little bit, right? Or not a little bit, a lot.
I did.
And with that, like, what got you into, tell me more about the story, like maybe share a story on like, when did that mindset shift and what were the actions that you took so that now to get to where you are today?
100%. So when I first started, I did not, for the first 19 properties we took down, I did not borrow money at all. I did not want to utilize other people's money. So my mentor at the time talked about OPM, and I just didn't get it yet. Like, I'm like, okay, I still don't understand that. And I had a mindset of, I'm Latina, I've ran my own businesses, I don't need anyone's money. I am not like about that. I met Vin, which Vin has been in real estate for 20 years now. I think it's 21, coming on 21 years. And he's like, you're going to run out of money. I'm like, no, I'm not. And at that time, he was in another venture. And I said, he's like, I'm just letting you know, I've been in real estate. You're going to run out of money. I got this. And so we came to a point where we had 5 refinances that my mom and I had at one point, and we were doing the burst strategy, and we were just rinse and repeat the money. And that time we were supposed to take $220,000 out of the Burr strategy of the refinance, and the banks shifted. And when the banks shifted, it went from 80% LTV down to 65% LTV. They didn't know what was going to happen. I don't know. There was some stuff happening. And we had to come to the table with $89,600. And we didn't know we were going to get that. So at that time, I was freaking out because we had midterm rental stays already in the property. The properties were already producing cash flow. And I'm like, I did the numbers right. I know I did the right thing. Like, I can't believe this. And so I was pushed into raising capital. So I had to go and seek some mentorship. And this gentleman was just, he's been in the game forever. And he's like, okay, let me look back at your portfolio. And when we looked, I was a knucklehead at putting 40% down on every deal because, again, mindset was like, I don't want to owe banks. I didn't know leverage back then. And so when he saw that, he says, you have a ton of equity in your properties and only being a year in, 2 years in. And that is how private money started. He goes, you need to go learn how to capital raise. So I went, I started learning how to capital raise. I remember those days. It was actually my first private money lender was part of one of my masterminds and mentorships. If you start to kind of hear what I'm talking about, I'm always around networks of people. And they said, I was waiting for you guys to ask us for money. And I remember asking, and they ended up giving us $30,000 over. Numbers had to make sense, but we were asking for under. And they were like, in fact, why are you asking for lesser? I said, we're going to put more, we're going to put 30,000 in for the furniture and everything. They're like, we're going to give it all to you. And so they actually said, we were waiting for this. The one thing I need you to change in your mindset is that you're giving us an opportunity to bet on you, and you're giving us an opportunity to make our money work for us. And so that kind of changed my whole perspective. And now I love my private money lenders. Like a lot of people think, oh my God, it's scary to raise capital, but you're helping them too, because there are people that we are been with us 3 years, 4 years, coming up on 5 years. We've been able to impact their lives with the passive income coming in, things that they probably would have never done. So that's kind of the backstory of it. And that's why I love, capital raising. Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, like you've said a few things there, like, really shifting your mindset into not just thinking about like what it can do for you, but like you're actually giving, these your funders or lenders an opportunity, right? But that's not kind of like the mindset for other people there, right? It's good that someone came to you and said, "You're giving us an opportunity, so here's our money."
Mhm.
But a lot of people don't have that mindset yet, right? They're curious about lending money, but they're still scared of getting burned, right?
Correct.
So what would you say would be one mistake like new private lenders make, and how could they avoid that?
Yeah, so a lot of my initiative right now, I thought it was going to be helping, which I am, helping and coaching capital raisers and how to be a capital raiser. Lately, it's been shifting to how to be a private money lender and protect your funds. We just recently launched a investment club, and we have 51 new private money lenders in our club that we are going to pour into in the next few months. But one of the things that I tell my private money lenders, it's an 80-20. A lot of people are like, oh, okay, so 80% look at the deal. No, it's 80% on the borrower. 20% is going to be for the deal. You're going to look at the deal. The numbers have to make sense. You got to make sure you're not over leveraged. 80% is on the borrower because at the end of the day, Teresa, real estate is real estate. Things can happen. It is what is the person capable of doing, aka borrower, capable of doing, and what levers and kind of risk tolerance and stress levels can they handle. I will not say that I have not had deals go upside down. I had a $225,000 liquid mistake happen. It's a yes, it's now we're past that story, but it's one project that we had. And I had three private money lenders on that.
Mm.
Lawyers and attorneys told me you have every legal right. The deal went bad. It was out of my control. It was a lot of things going on. It had to do with the contractor. And we were building a $2 million project. So that's why the money is a lot. And I didn't walk away from my private money lenders. I communicated with them. I told them what was going on. And I was able to, unfortunately, had to pay them from other things and cross collateralize and do things that I had to do. But I had the right to walk away. And so my point to you is when you are a private money lender, you need to know what would they do in certain situations and plan for the worst and hope for the best. And I always say that, like, okay, so what if this doesn't, like, we always tell people, have three different types of exit strategies. You have to, because we don't know. Right now, our market is so volatile. At first, people were Airbnb, short-term rentals. Now that's getting out. Now there's the new fab, co-living, affordable housing, which is amazing and it's actually doing impact. But what if we get saturated there? Like, what are we, so you have to just know and have options. But I always tell private money lenders, do your due diligence on the borrower. The deal will always pan out because numbers are numbers, but the borrower is who you need to really focus on.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that your investment club, it's what I like about it too is that you're kind of also again giving not only giving them the opportunity to flow their money so that it can grow, right? Because that's currency. It has to flow in order for it to grow. But also it feels like you're kind of giving them the opportunity to learn as they invest, right?
100%. So they're earning and learning at the same time. And our goal is for them to continue to stay with us in future ventures. However, what the whole goal also is once the commitment is over and our club it may be dissolved, that's kind of the commitment right now, that they are going to be a full understanding of how to be able to go out there and confidently go and lend on their own if they want to. So that is what we're teaching. I want people to know how do we look at deals, how do we look at borrowers, how are we, where do we find these, and so that they can feel confident because there's a lot of people, Teresa, that want to lend money and they're just scared. And they
Yeah.
hear these stories, they get on some Facebook things, and they're true stories, right? But they're just scared and they're like, I don't want to get burned. A lot of people don't realize $50,000 in a 401k is taking somebody 25 years to build, and one borrower not being ethical or unfortunately not doing their right by a PML, they can lose it all. Right. And sometimes people have to, as capital raisers, and borrowers have to really remember that. I mean, 25 years of someone building a 401k and then you're just going to come and not treat their money right. That's not good.
Right, right. And that's something that they're actually, depending on for retirement because obviously in just a few short years, we can't even depend on Social Security anymore, right? That's going to be depleted. And they're depending now on their 401k and how can they grow that so that they would have at least a decent retirement, right?
And we do. We have some of our private money lenders that they depend on that monthly interest payment, and that is what they utilize to live. So I love the whole aspect of, being the bank and being able to give that. And that's the thing, like well, it's not up to date anymore, but as of February, we had paid back $600,000 in interest only. That's not principal, that is interest. And I was going to pay that to the bank. And instead of paying it to a bank, I was able to pay it and impact our private money lenders. So,
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's kind of like a way for that's sort of like what we're trying to teach in the Thrive movement courses as well, is that how can you become your own bank so that, you replicate what the banks are doing, right? They're getting those high interest. And by, them being the bank and help working with you, lending on your projects, they get those high interest rates that the banks could be earning. So with you going the lender route versus the private money lender route versus going to a traditional bank, not only are you helping your purpose, but then also these people who are dependent on like getting those high returns for their retirement. So that's
absolutely.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you've talked about different exit strategies earlier, whether that's midterm rentals and co-living. It seems like you're really talking about co-living a lot, especially I think that's the strategy you're going with to reach those 10,000 lives. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. So it's going to be a combination, but primarily focused with the co-living. Yes.
Nice. Now, most people would think like, co-living, cash flow, but you see it differently, especially since you're more focused on the lives that you're going to impact versus how much is it going to cash. Obviously, cash flow
Yeah.
is important, but you're more focused on the lives that you are impacting.
Right.
So, now the question is, why is co-living a powerful wealth and impact strategy? And maybe share a quick story about the first step that you took to get into co-living, and what was the outcome there?
Yeah, so we are just starting on our journey with co-living. Our 2025 goal and where we're looking and headed is that we've realized where our seed is. We know what our superpower is, and that is being able to be capital partners and bringing a pool of investors to be able to really help us with this movement and help us with other operators. So we know what our strengths are. There are people that are amazing at building out the co-living. We were actually at a property yesterday. It was a networking event, and they're doing a co-living out in Austin, Texas. And so where we can see ourselves impact and be able to scale and really be able to do a big movement is by going to the operators of co-living and saying, hey, do you need capital partners? I want you to focus on how to build this out, how to make everything the room the way we need to, and all of the construction and acquisition of the property and get it up and operated. Don't worry about the funding aspect of it. We got you. And we go into partnerships that way. So we have not yet actually broken ground or started a co-living. We are in the talks with some current partners. We do know which, because co-living is a big word in the sense there's many different strategies. So we know our three that we are looking to be able to partner with other operators as well as investors, and that would be aged out foster care, senior independent living, as well as veterans. And so what we're doing in our owners club is actually going and talking to others that have already done this, and who doesn't need money, right? And so saying, hey, we can partner with you, Teresa, or other people, and be able to bring the capital partners and then continue to keep making the movement. So we are looking probably around July, August to start. We're making these conversations to start to get involved in these type of projects. And so that is kind of where we're at on that, on that side of things. So we just learned about the co-living model more of the in March at the Squad Up Summit. So we kept hearing about it, but we didn't know really. And then when Jamil and Damji got on stage and really kind of went into it, that's when we're like, okay, this is where we're at. Like this is where our heart is, and this is what we're going to be behind. So yeah.
Love that. Love that. And I will be so excited to watch your journey in this realm. But you mentioned a lot about finding the right partners, finding people who could that you could or projects that you could fund and all that stuff. Now, outside of and it seems like you've already gotten like several operators that you want to work with and you're more on the funding side. Tell me more about like what you're looking for um, in partners outside, well, I guess in operators and then also on the funding side. Tell me more about that.
So the funding side of it would be private money investors. We have been telling our private money investors, currently our lenders right now, they're only debt lenders up to this point. And we have been saying for years when they first started working with us, like when we grow, you will grow. And so we are in that 4.5 year phase, and everybody's like, okay, when are we growing? Because you've only been in a certain. And I said, okay, we're going to the next level. And so a lot of our private money lenders, which is kind of a shift for us, they're like, okay, so they're going to work on our deals. They've been working with us, and they're like, okay, the next co-living opportunity, let us know, right? And we've already been putting the buzz out there. We already have soft private money lenders and commitments to say, hey, whenever that deal is, because they understand if they want to work with us, we're going to be working on impact driven things. So it really on the private money lending side, we'll have two components. One will be on projects that they will just be a bank, and some are okay with that because they want to be a passive investor. We will have other projects that they're going to want to be a little bit of an equity partner, and they're going to need to be able to have a split, right? Have, be somewhat of a bank and then be equity within those. And we're going to have to see how we're going to match make that with current partnerships and operators that we're seeking. And it really, honestly, Teresa, it's interviewing, having conversations. We don't take partnership lightly, right? In the words. I know I just had a conversation with someone yesterday, and I said we can work together and be JVs on certain things on the first couple of projects. And if all of our core values and stars really align and management styles and everything starts going, then we can start talking about bigger things of partnerships. Um, I was in a previous mastermind, and it's a 98 questions of partnerships, just for partnerships. And so it's crazy because it asks, because we love when we first come with the story, the mission, the core values, but we always forget the when it goes bad, what will happen. And I know it's an ugly feeling story to talk about, but it's very necessary to talk up front about that so that we can set realistic expectations on being able to do that. So partnerships are going to be hard to be able to say, okay, hey, this is where our movement. I'm confident we will find it, and we're still navigating through that. And I have always been a believer of you can have multiple type of relationships and partnerships. So biggest thing is core values, understanding it's going to, build a legacy, and really just the intention behind it. We are not money driven. And so we have to make sure that individuals are with us on that. Do we all need to make money? 100%, but we're not driven by that. So
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the quotes that I really live by is that when purpose drives profit, then everyone thrives, right? So purpose
exactly.
first, then profit next. But Michelle, if someone's listening today and wants to, be involved in your projects, or essentially, how can they connect with you?
Absolutely. So we, at My Story Michelle, it's all my social media handles, or you can simply do michelleandvin.com. Both websites, actually, mystorymichelle.com, they have where you can get on my calendar. I truly like to have conversations with individuals and then really see, okay, where can we be able to collaborate together? And it could be, we have on our page working together. So it could be if you're listening to this and you're a real estate agent, if you're a stay-at-home mom, if you are a plumber, like any capacity, we could be able to have a conversation. And it could either be that you are looking to be an investor or you're looking to become a private money lender. We can figure out where those stars align if they do. So they can reach out to me, and really, and we can talk about both sides of kind of where we're at and what they're looking for.
Awesome. So, I'll share your social media handles and also your websites in the show notes below. But true to the your money, your rule style, we want to make this actionable, right? So, if there was one thing that our audience can take today in order to take a step forward in their maybe capital raising journey, what would that be?
Absolutely. I was just on a call with someone right now, and what I said is stick to one thing, get good at one thing, and build. And so for us, we've been playing in the space of midterm rentals for 4 years and got really good at that. Now we're building on touch, just like building a house, no intention, right? But the next level is the capital raising side of it. And we're focusing on just being capital raisers because we want to scale our portfolio, but just being on the money side versus being on the acquisition side and getting the properties. So when you're in a capital raising seat, focus on one strategy, build that, build your relationships. It's all about relationships. And then you can get into bigger deals, bigger opportunities. And so that's the actionable step, I would say, because I guess all of us get that object syndrome and want to go and do multiple things. I'm on the phone with someone that's a new capital raiser, and she was in a $50 million capital raising deal. And I said, that's really big. I personally wouldn't even take that on right now. And I've been doing this for about 4.5 years. And so you just have to know, let's start small to build big.
Yeah, you have to crawl before you could run, right? So, absolutely. All right, you heard it right there from Michelle. Your homework for the week is figure out what strategy you want to focus on, whether that's building your portfolio or raising capital. And honestly, take it one step at a time because you do have to crawl before you walk and run. And as long as you're taking action, you are golden, my friend. And again, before we end this episode, and if this conversation got the wheels in your head turning and you're still unsure where to start, know that you're not alone. And that is why I've created the Thrive movement to help everyday investors like you protect and grow your wealth through Thrive Banking. It's a way to safeguard your money before investing by leveraging OPM or other people's money. It's the process that the banks have perfected to get high rates of return while using none of their own money. And by doing so, you can now go raise even more OPM because lenders and partners see that you already have a smart system in place. You see, Thrive Banking does not replace raising capital. It makes raising capital easier because now you can say, hey, you know what? I got my money working in two places at the exact same time, getting high rates of return like the bank. You want to join me? Right? That's how you build legacy and partnerships at the exact same time. Now, Michelle, thank you so much for being here and giving us so much game. And to everyone listening, until next time, take control, build legacy, and remember, your money, your rules.